Hello and welcome back to PNL Podcast, located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. I'm your host and founder of Paranormal NL Podcast, Jen Noseworthy. Thank you for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in Ireland and 105.3 out on that Gulf. Watch and listen to PNL Podcast every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on UPRNTalkRadio.com. For tonight's Shakespeare-Origins of the Pen Name and Beware the Ides of March special on UPRN segment number 70. Yes, Shakespeare wrote the play Julius Caesar, but who really was Shakespeare? Where and what were the origins of his pen name? I've got a special guest waiting backstage from the Ohio Valley, West Virginia, USA, and a guest from San Francisco, California, USA, who I'll bring on shortly. Now it's time to grab your favorite Ides of March and Victorian drinks, your mystery spyglass, your thinking hat, and a few Shakespearean munchies, and get ready for the show tonight. Paranormal NL Podcast is sponsored by the Bog Team. It's a boots-on-the-ground Bog Team doing historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland, Canada. Smash those subscribe buttons and grab your PNL Podcast and Bog Team merch at TeePublic on their link tree, Paranormal NL Podcast. All Bog Team music heard in the intro and the exit is available for download and use on all social media and streaming music platforms. Now, let's get on with the show tonight. Paranormal NL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. And we also like to include a lot of authors on our show. Now, tonight, I've got a special co-host here, and he introduced me to tonight's guest. Now, I'm going to bring him on the stage, and he's all the way from West Virginia. We've got Mark. Welcome. Mark, I'm going to unmute you. Welcome.
Did you have a nice weekend?
Yes, I had a great weekend.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I know that we're already all the way into March right now, but yeah, so you're going to get pinched if you don't have any green on this month. Now, I'm going to pull up Katherine. She is our guest tonight, and she comes in with us all the way from West Coast, California. Welcome, Katherine Chiljan. And here she is. Let me take off her mute. Welcome, Katherine.
Hi, so happy to be here, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. So, Mark, I'm going to have you introduce yourself since you're the co-host tonight. And then I'll have Katherine introduce herself. I'm just going to put Katherine on mute there for a second. Mark, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the folks listening on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, around the world?
Okay. I've been, hanging out on UPRN for about 15 years. Nice to continue the collaboration, and hopefully someday I can move up to having a crocheted alien like Michelle has. But I
shout out to Michelle, one of our producers. Yes.
I've written this book. I'm going to have another prehistoric book coming out soon. But that's I've been trying to do writings on the prehistory of the Upper Ohio River Valley.
Yes, you've got a lot of information in that book there. So, Katherine, welcome. I'm going to unmute you here so we can talk with you. The ghosts we're trying to call earlier, the ghosts of Christmas past.
Yeah.
Welcome all the way from California. Tell the folks listening on UPRN a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been researching and studying the Shakespeare authorship controversy for 40 years now. It's been a great passion of mine. Of course, I have a day job too, but as a result, I have written a book. I wrote it in 2011 initially, and then reprinted it in 2016. It's available on Amazon. It's called Shakespeare Suppressed. And it's the book that I wish I had when I first got into the controversy, which was when I saw a debate on television about this topic.
It's the ghost calling again.
Ghost calling again. Sorry about that. And anyway, I soon after got an award for outstanding research from Concordia University, and I'm working on another book and have been enjoying doing podcasts like yours.
Well, thank you so much for being on today. You've got a great work of art, shall we say, here, and there's lots to get into, right, Mark? I know, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can take the ghost from Christmas.
Yeah, I'm going to go take the ghost.
Off the hook. Yeah. While she's doing that, Mark is going to pull up a few different things that, what were you holding up earlier?
Oh, it's Catherine's book.
Yes, there it is. There it is in the flesh. And can you want to scroll through it on the camera here? Is there any pictures in there too?
Lot of, we're going to get into them here shortly, but there is like okay, she's back.
Yep, there she is.
I got the ghost out.
Okay. But we're going to get into this.
She had to get the sage going, Mark.
Yeah. The difference between the original, over here, the drawing of the Shakespeare monument and what you see today when you go to Stratford, the Holy Trinity Church, and see all the Shakespeare sites. Are people participating in a hoax?
Well, do you want to get a little bit into this, Katherine? Let's start with what sparked your interest with this in the beginning.
Yes, it was a debate on television between a Shakespeare professor and somebody who said that Shakespeare was actually the 17th Earl of Oxford. And I knew nothing about this. My only interest I had about who he was is I read Hamlet. And inside the edition, it showed a list of all the plays and their dates.
Okay.
Except after every date, there was a question mark. And I thought to myself, gee, after 400 years, they still don't know when Hamlet was written? I thought that was odd. But outside of that, I knew nothing about it. And when I heard Mr. Ogburn make incredible sensical points against the person that the Shakespeare professor believes wrote the works, one after the other, it was very clear to me that there was a problem with the traditional attribution of Shakespeare. And I read the gentleman's book, Charlton Ogburn. It's called The Mysterious William Shakespeare. And that came out in 1984. And then I read it in 85. And I wanted to tell everybody ever since. So because we're talking about, one of the titans of Western civilization. And I think that the world needs to know who he really was. And
yes.
If they have the right man, then they're going to have a biography attached to it, which right now, the current attribution of the man born in Stratford-on-Avon, we have nothing of a literary biography. It's tragic. And we just don't know how these plays came about. We don't know when they were written. It goes on and on. It's mysterious. And I think it's because we have the wrong man.
Yes, agreed. There is an interesting picture I'm going to put up on the screen here that I was talking with Mark about. Did you want to talk a little bit about this picture and some of the significance of it? Like, I never really even thought about it until he pointed out some of the oddities.
Yes. I also have a picture too. Maybe get a little bit more context. This is the opening pages of what they call Shakespeare's first folio. And it has the image that we're all aware of, the black and white image of Shakespeare. And that's the very first time we see any sort of image attached to Shakespeare. And this was 7 years after the Stratford man had died.
Yes. And in sonnet 125, wasn't it, Mark? It was, what was it to me to bear this image?
7 years after he died. You'd think that the literary community would be out in full force mourning him.
Right. Well, I mean, look at what you showed me here about this part here. Like, why did they make it so startlingly ugly, shall we say, and strange? Kind of like when you look at The Last Supper, there's all these weird oddities in there that make you go,
Well, I would say the first weird oddity is the very large forehead.
Yes.
Which does not seem natural. And also the sort of wooden quality of the face. It looks stiff.
Like a mask.
Exactly. And if you look at the hair looks like it's been glued on, with something else.
Right.
And also, interestingly, a question mark is right near the ear. And it's very hard to tell with these pictures, but it appears to be a second line.
Okay.
Under the ear, 2 lines, which would give the idea that you can just lift a mask off. Like it really is meant to be a mask, because they don't know where this picture derived.
That was going to be my next question. Who painted this? And it was during the era when, there was a lot of paintings done, but had little innuendos in them too. Little Easter eggs that you had to find, right?
Right. Well, the other odd thing about this image is that there is no sign that this is a writer. He's not holding a pen or paper, or books are there, or even a very common depiction of poets back then and authors was to be holding a laurel leaf or wearing a laurel wreath. So that's another oddity. Instead, he's just shown as kind of just an average, ordinary, a gentleman, maybe somebody with a little money. But that's it. There's no other indication of who we're talking about. I mean, that if you open it up, you're going to see a bunch of plays.
Yes, and there's something else that I really wanted to get into. I'm going to pull up on the screen here. When you look at all of these signatures, you see the shake and the spare. And why would a man sign his name in so many different ways? Yeah, it's clearly a man who barely knew how to spell or even could hold a pen. And those signatures, that's the entire collection of writing that we have of this man born in Stratford-on-Avon. It's these 6 signatures, 3 were on his will, and 3 were on other legal documents. And that's all we have. There's no Shakespeare play manuscripts in existence. So if he's the best writer in history, why can't he sign his own name?
That's one excellent point. And it brings us to his education. And as far as we know, he did not attend school. It's assumed that the Stratford man did attend school because his father was an alderman or something like that. It's possible, but those records, unfortunately, do not survive. So we can't confirm it one way or the other. But noblemen, wouldn't they have gone to school, correct? Oh, yes.
Somebody very poor probably didn't go to school, but even though they were very poor, could they have gotten their hands on a lot of printed material? But if you couldn't write, how could you read? Like, so who was this person signing these forms?
Well, keep in mind that the Stratford man, his father and mother were both illiterate. And also the Stratford man's two daughters were also illiterate, as far as we know. One did sign her name, but very shaky, similar to the father. So he was born in an illiterate family. They had like little sponsorships for people of humble origins who showed promise. They did have such things. They did have mentors, but there's no such claiming for the Stratford man.
You know, this kind of makes me think of, I don't know if you've ever watched the popular series that comes on Netflix called Bridgerton, where there's this person writing about all these people in town, like a gossip column, and the queen of the area gets involved with it. And she's all excited about it and wants to know who it is. And everybody's trying to figure out, who is writing this. And I wonder, could some of this be stemmed to Queen Elizabeth I?
We're jumping around here. If we go and talk about the true author, who I believe was the 17th Earl of Oxford, she gave him an annuity of £1,000 a year. So she partially sponsored, you could say, the great author. But as far as the Stratford man, there's no records connecting him to Queen Elizabeth. And yet, if you look at the title pages of the early printed editions of two plays, they say that the plays were performed before Queen Elizabeth. So, yet where is the connection? Now, you might say, well, it's been 400 years, but we have letters from John Lilly, who was a playwright who had plays performed before the Queen, and there's correspondence out there, but none with the great Shakespeare. So that's another zero. And when you talk about all the zeros, like no one claimed to have met him while he was alive. There's no proof of his education, no proof of a literary career. No one claimed to have known him. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. You get all these zeros. When the Stratford man died in 1616, no one said anything. And yet the plays were enormously popular at that time. So all this adds up to the name being a pen name.
It does
the
sound
problem
like
that. The problem was that there was somebody with a similar name to the pen name, and that was the Stratford man. And the two got mixed. Now, the Stratford man was involved with the theater. I totally admit that. He held theater shares. He was a member of an acting company. But all the evidence points to his involvement, not as an actor, but as a financier, somebody who invested in the theater and invested in the play company, or even loaned him money. In fact, the first record that we have of the Stratford man in London, it's for him giving a loan in 1592. So that's our first record. And the first association that we have with him being involved with actors of the theater was in 1595. And the Stratford man was in his early 30s already. These are the first references, right? So what happened before that? They call a certain period of 1585 to 1592 as the lost years. They don't know anything about the whereabouts of the Stratford man or the great Shakespeare. Right?
He shot a deer.
Right.
Yes. He got arrested for deer poaching.
Right.
And ended up didn't he end up in jail?
Well, I mean, this is really more mythology than reality. I mean, these are facts that came many years after his death. In fact, the only evidence that we do have for the Stratford man is posthumous. There's no lifetime evidence that the Stratford man was the great author. Zero. It's really an unproven theory. There's only one piece of evidence, and that was after he died, which we already showed up. It was in this book, the first folio. And if the opening 16 pages give tributes or a letter to the sponsors of the work. And in one tribute, they call Shakespeare the sweet swan of Avon. And then a few pages later is another tribute by another man, and he refers to the Stratford Monument, thy Stratford Monument. And that's what Mark just showed.
Yes.
There is a monument to Shakespeare in the Stratford-on-Avon Church. But before these two clues, no one associated the great author with Stratford-on-Avon. It was all from this book. And it's posthumous evidence.
And what you see today does have a quill, but the original design has a bag of grain or wool. Can you rectify that, Catherine?
A sack of some sort. Yeah. The drawing on the left, the black and white engraving, was based on a drawing in 1630 or something. And that's what the monument actually looked like originally. And it was a man with a long beard. He's holding a sack, right?
And no quill.
And there's no pen and paper, right? But then if you look at today's monument, it looks a little different, doesn't it?
It does. It looks completely different. And didn't Mark Twain think also that somebody else was Shakespeare? Yes,
he. I don't know if he knew exactly who it was, but he knew it wasn't the Stratford man. And the reason, one of his main reasons, and he wrote a book about this in 1909 called "Is Shakespeare Dead?" But one of his main reasons is that the law terms, the legal terms in the plays are amazing. And he just can't believe that the Stratford man with no known education and no listing in law schools, we have those records actually from that period. How is it possible that he could have known about this?
Right.
So, so he knew it was somebody else.
There it is.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah. Is Shakespeare dead?
Now, in his book, wasn't there another book, Mark, Thomas Looney?
Yeah. Yeah, but there's this one too. Before we jump into this one, maybe we want to ask Catherine. Okay, so when the Stratford man comes to London, he starts off being a poet, not a playwright.
Right. He's a poet first before he goes to London. But how could somebody who couldn't even read and write be a poet, right?
So what do the what's the difference between the sonnets and the plays we all read in high school?
Is that to me? Directed to me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not quite sure where you're going with that. But the sonnets are poems, right? 14-line poems. And Shakespeare wrote 154 of them, and they're extremely personal. And they discuss the people that he loved, the great author loved. One was a lady with dark hair and eyes, and another was a beautiful young man. And many people believe, and I'm one of them, that he was Henry Roseley, the third Earl of Southampton. And he was a fantastic, glittering aristocrat. one of the Queen's favorite courtiers in the early 1590s. And if that was the case, then how did the Stratford man come to know him? Again, it's
Right.
it's a great leap of faith to try and make a connection here. And that's always been a problem. Even though most Shakespeare scholars will tell you that it is Southampton, they don't know how the two met. It's all speculation.
Now, there's another gentleman that you talk about a little bit also during some of your main points is this gentleman here.
Yeah, that's who I was just speaking of, the 3rd Earl of Southampton.
Yes, and in regards to him, I mean, he looks like obviously a nobleman.
Yeah.
Bring his picture back up there.
Well, I believe that the Earl of Oxford was the true author, and it just so happens that one of the Earl of Oxford's daughters was almost engaged to the Earl of Southampton. So the Earl of Oxford certainly knew him.
Okay.
And also the Earl of Oxford, or Shakespeare, quote unquote, he dedicated 2 long poems to the Earl of Southampton. The first one was Venus and Adonis, which is a very erotic poem that was a huge hit in London in 1593. And then the following year, another one called The Rape of Lucrece, and both were dedicated to the Earl of Southampton. So he certainly had influence with the great author. But again, there's no known connections between these two entities. But there is a known connection with the Earl of Oxford and the Earl of Southampton.
Yeah, since we're still talking about the sonnets, you do cover that the real author seems like he's a much older person. He's writing about sonnet 71, when I'm dead, and my lameness. Then you go on to say man from Stratford was only 34.
Yes.
It's kind of
so he seems much older.
When the sonnets were first published. Yes.
Yeah. So that seems to be another indication that we're dealing with someone different from the traditional biography. And then you get into sonnet 125. Can you tell us a little bit about that one, please?
Yes. The great author says in sonnet 125, "Were it aught to me, I bore the canopy, with my extern the outward honoring." So were it aught to me means, does it mean anything to me? Does it mean anything to me that I held the canopy? Now,
and there's the canopy right there, right?
What he's referencing is the Queen would often go out in like a litter or something, they would call it that. And only like high officials or nobility would be able to hold the canopy. It's just not anybody. So if thinking that it was the Stratford man writing those words, it just doesn't work, doesn't fit.
Yeah,
but of course,
all the people near her are
nobles.
Yeah, the nobility.
Just like our, queen or king nowadays, only the nobles or the family bloodline can get close to them. I mean, you're not allowed traditionally around them if you're not, of a certain breed, shall we say.
We don't see a baker in the
right
painting.
Yeah, and it's also a kind of like a disgruntled courtier saying that. Was it anything to me that I held the canopy? Right? Like, if it were the Stratford man, it would be the greatest honor of his life. But here we're talking about somebody who's no big deal. And so he's been around. In other words, he's been around the aristocracy and the royalty. And
now,
again,
a lot of people who write have their own pen name, and I guess you could say that's not them who was writing it. It's somebody else. So this is all what we're talking about. Could it be somebody completely different? I brought this up to Mark. Could it be a female writing? Because back then they really weren't allowed, and like they couldn't even vote or anything, could they?
Right. Well, I mean, it certainly could have been, but I don't go by that. I think that the Earl of Oxford, his case is so overwhelming, especially with the life parallels. If we take Hamlet, for example, that's considered by many scholars as probably the great author's portrait of himself, right? But who are we talking about? We're talking about a prince, right? Prince Hamlet. And he was somebody who went to university. He's somebody who sponsored an acting troupe. We're talking about somebody who, while in a ship traveling, it gets attacked by pirates and they steal everything. These are just a few examples, a few parallels. And all of this pertains to the 17th Earl of Oxford. The same thing happened, right? And I think it's just obvious. There's another obvious one in All's Well That Ends Well, the play.
Why do you suppose that he would do that, though? Not use his own name?
Okay, well, that's a good question. The reason why was because associating with the theater during this period was considered something, déclassé. It's not something that you wanted to be known as. So during his lifetime, he didn't want to be known by people, or he didn't want people to discuss this. Even a few contemporaries mentioned this, that to praise him for his works would stain him.
Kind of like in the paranormal, it's always taboo and, oh, you're not supposed to talk about it and things like that. It's kind of like that, swept under the rug,
Right. So that's why he didn't want it to be known. But after his death, it would have been perfectly acceptable. And that did not happen for the Earl of Oxford. I can give you one example, Sir Philip Sidney. He was a courtier poet, right? And he had creative works, but he never published them in his lifetime. After he died, he was killed in the war. After he died, his works got printed, and actually even printed by his own sister, who was a countess.
Okay.
So it was perfectly acceptable to get full credit after your death, but that didn't happen for the Earl of Oxford, and that really is the key to the entire mystery, why he didn't get credit. I think J. Thomas Loney, the book Shakespeare Identified, I think he proved it. I think he was an English schoolmaster in 1920. His book came out. He proved the Earl of Oxford was Shakespeare. But
why do some people think that Edward de Vere wrote it instead of, yeah?
That's the same one, same person.
Okay, so let me bring this on the stage. What? Okay, so Edward de Vere is actually the same
17th,
person.
Yeah, 17th Earl of Oxford.
Yeah,
there you go.
He was the one, and you can read Loney's book. It's excellent. You can read. There's many books and articles outlining his case as the great author, that he was using the pen name William Shakespeare. You can even go to the Shakespeare-Oxford-Fellowship.org, and they lay it out. There's so many reasons. First of all, the great author, whoever he was, he had a superlative education. And we can say that for the Earl of Oxford. He went to Cambridge University when he was 8 years old. And later he went to Oxford University. He got a degree in 1566. He was 16. Thereafter, he went to law school. These are all documented. And he had private tutors. And he was like 12 or 13, and they even wrote a note saying that we can't teach him anymore. He knows everything. He was a child prodigy, right? And he took a grand tour of Europe when he was 25. He spent a little over a year. Most of the time he spent in Italy, where many of the Shakespeare plays are set, like Merchant of Venice and Othello. And he even notes obscure things about Italy, places in Italy, that things that you wouldn't see like in a travel book, for example, just some incidental things.
So, you know, he's well cultured and lived a good life.
And you know that he went there. And yet the Stratford man, there's no evidence he ever left England, you know, because you needed permission back then. So everything points in the 17th Earl of Oxford's direction. And once you know that, you can read these plays and they come alive because you can see his life story in them.
And I wonder, did the person who said they were Shakespeare during the time, did they get financially compensated for what they were doing?
Well, that's a good question. My guess is no. My guess is that the whole thing, the whole contrivance of making the Stratford man the true author happened after the Earl of Oxford died and after the Stratford man died. I think it was arranged. And I think the main reason was because the powers that be wanted to decontextualize the works and the sonnets, especially because the sonnets give some information that people can read a certain way that was maybe politically not correct. So they wanted to replace the great author with somebody of humble origin who had no court connections whatsoever. A good example is, for example, in Hamlet, a main character is the counselor or prime minister, Polonius. And it's been known for decades that Polonius was a picture of Lord Burleigh, who was the Queen's top minister. It's a perfect parallel. And it was not a nice treatment. It was kind of a making fun of the man treatment. I don't think his family, the Cecil family, would have wanted it to be known that the Earl of Oxford wrote the works, because the Earl of Oxford knew Cecil. In fact, he was his son-in-law, Lord Burleigh's son-in-law. So,
and there's the Burleigh house, yes.
Yeah, very wealthy.
So
to this day.
Yeah. So, and you and your friend Earl, fellow researcher into this historic
Earl Showerman.
Yes, profiling mystery. Do talk a lot about the library that he would have had access to, and even in your latest publication on in the Oxfordian, you discuss the Earls of Oxford's Geneva Bible. How it was a prized possession of his.
Yes.
How many books in Shakespeare's library do we know about?
Well, yes, the Earl of Oxford, when he was 12, his father, the 16th Earl, died. And back then, if you were of the nobility, you became a ward of the Queen or the monarch. And so the Queen appointed Lord Burleigh, who is the gentleman on the right side of that picture with the three figures, to live in his home. And like I mentioned, he was one of the Queen's top ministers, very powerful man. And he had an enormous library, and his wife was also a scholar. So they had a huge amount of books. And I mean, the great author had a huge knowledge of many, many, many books of all sorts. And so I also the Geneva Bible that Mark was talking about, it has all these underlinings and interlineations showing his interest in the Bible. And Dr. Roger Strittmatter wrote his thesis on this Bible of De Vere's, how there are so many correspondences between the underlying linings and the little marginalia, the little writing on the side, with lines in Shakespeare, the great correspondent.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yes, because a lot of people sometimes nowadays you see people reading and they got their Kobo and all these other electronic books, but I always love a book, right? So you can do that, write little things in the margin, and it seems like a thing of the past now to be able to do that, right?
Well, the true Shakespeare loved to do that too. So, and this book is at the Folger Shakespeare Library. And actually, if you go online, you can see it. You can see the entire book and all the little scribbles that he did. And what it shows you what he thought was interesting. Sometimes it would be a pointed finger like this. He would draw that and like call attention to something. We also have many letters, I think over 70 letters of the Earl of Oxford. And he had beautiful handwriting, italic handwriting.
Nice. Have you seen any of these originals?
Yeah, actually, I saw one at the Huntington Library in Pasadena area. Yes.
Has anybody ever compared the handwriting of the signature page that I had up and some of the writing that you're talking about?
You mean the 6 signatures?
Yes.
The Stratford. Yeah. No, there's not a correspondence at all. Yeah.
Really? Nobody's done that yet?
Well, it's the Stratford man. He was not the real author. He was a real person, but not the author of the plays. Right. So, but if we had a Shakespeare play manuscript, which we don't, but if we could find one, I'm sure there would be a perfect match with the Earl of Oxford's handwriting.
Interesting. Right.
Yeah. But the point is, we need to find those manuscripts. I mean, we're talking manuscripts for over 40 plays and 2 long poems and all these sonnets. Where are all the writings? Where are they?
They're at the Smithsonian in the basement, where everything else is.
Well, wherever they are, they're buried, and nobody knows about them. And we need to find them because they're going to tell us so much. And I'm hoping they're still around, that they haven't been,
It makes you wonder what else they got downstairs in their basement.
Yeah.
Do they even have some works maybe by him that were never even read before?
Well, new things are popping up every now and then, about plays, anonymous plays that could be Shakespeare's. So actually, there are several. There are about 10. Which my colleague Ramon Jimenez, he wrote a book called The Shakespeare's Apprenticeship. And there were several plays that are like Shakespeare's plays, but they're not exactly the same. Like there's Taming of the Shrew and Taming of a Shrew. And there's Henry V, and there's the famous victories of Henry V. There's a few of those. And there's actually very close correspondence, but they do not put the name Shakespeare. These scholars do not attribute them to Shakespeare because they think they were written too early. But of course, this timeline is totally bogus if it's the Stratford man. Too early than what? If they were the Earl of Oxford, they're going to work. So
were they more like rough drafts?
They could have been rough drafts, but I really think they were early versions of plays, and then he later rewrote things.
Can you imagine if somebody found that in a garage sale or something? It's somebody's attic somewhere. Like, wow. I mean, some of the greatest painting people have had things found like that, haven't they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they have found many important works in people's basements.
And it's so unfortunate that things like this are so delicate, because over time it does fade, right? So when you went and you saw some of these at the museums, were they really faded?
No, actually, like for the Earl of Oxford's letters, and I held one in my hand.
Did you?
Yeah, they were
Okay,
on
good.
like thicker parchment or catgut, or I don't know what they called it. But
Okay,
actually,
yes.
they say that that type of paper can last another 400 years.
Oh, go away.
That's
Okay.
how, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because today's paper is kind of bleached out. You can put it under a
right,
light, and if it glows, then that's the new stuff, and the old stuff doesn't do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's how you can tell that kind of stuff apart. Mark, do you have any other show and tell stuff that you want to hold up, talk about? I should give a shout out to your co-host, Brian Bowden. He's the one that introduced
Oh yes.
me to yourself. I think that's where I saw you on Brian's show, Third Eye Live with Mark.
Yeah, that was the Italian restaurant show when I had a little bit of a problem with the tech stuff that happened down the street, and I had to broadcast from the neighbor's birthday party. But yeah, here's the New Place souvenir book.
Okay.
And Catherine's familiar with the opening sentence to it. One of the indisputable facts about Shakespeare is that when he was approaching the peak of his fame and success as a playwright in London, he purchased the house in Stratford-upon-Avon known as New Place. Doesn't that sound really defensive?
Yeah.
One of the indisputable facts. You just start off.
Right.
You're saying you can't disprove this. Don't look there. Just believe what I'm telling you.
But if you go on Alexander Waugh, his channel, YouTube channel, he'll give you another rendition of what's going on with New Place. That most or many of the sites in Stratford-on-Avon are really bogus, or originally, like for example, the birthplace. And now you see this like bigger house, but it was only like a quarter of that size. But they kept like expanding it. I mean, I can't speak for him, but he did these great videos on the Stratford-on-Avon.
So they're like using tourism to try to suck people in and buy all kinds of stuff. Why not, right? Everybody's trying to make a buck off of tourism.
Yeah. I guess you can't blame them, but I think that even if the world finally accepts the Earl of Oxford as the great author, I think it's Stratford-on-Avon is still important because that's where the hoax started. It's and the Stratford man was a real man. We don't know exactly his relation with the Earl of Oxford. I think the Earl of Oxford knew him,
Yes.
but I don't know if the Stratford man knew the Earl of Oxford. I think it may have been just one way.
There's so many different things that we could talk about in relation to this topic, right, Mark?
I agree.
Did you have another one? I know you had a bunch of things that you were showing me. A lot of different books that were really interesting. He's got a whole stack of them down there by his feet. Are you sitting on them? He's probably sitting on them too, right?
Yeah, they're on the floor on the desk. Here's Dr. Earl Showerman's recent publication from
Okay.
2025, and we know from the first folio that the contributor did not think that the author had much Latin or Greek learning.
Yeah, Ben Jonson.
but the doctor disagrees. That's why it's recommends that we need to understand that since the real author had access to a vast library, he had a greater knowledge of Greek. Catherine, you want to just briefly touch on that theme?
Yeah, Ben Jonson, who was a playwright during the period, he wrote that long, beautiful elegy to Shakespeare, and that's where he said he called him Sweet Swan of Avon. And of course, Alexander Waugh, who I just mentioned, he discovered that Avon really was another name for Hampton Court, which was a palace of the queens and kings back then. So he was really a court poet. That's what he's really saying, but it was ambiguously written. Well, the same thing is true for hadst thou, I forgot the exact phrase, but he's basically saying to Shakespeare, even if you didn't have good Latin or Greek, is basically what, and of course the conventional scholars say, oh, he just means that he didn't have a lot of ancient Greek or Latin in his vocabulary. And Earl Showerman's book that Mark is showing you, he gives all these references to Greek plays that Shakespeare was very thoroughly knowledgeable about and used even in Hamlet. He used portions of ancient Greek plays, but the standard Shakespeare professor will say, oh no, he didn't, just because of what Ben Jonson said. But if you really examine it, he did. And that, again, disqualifies the Stratford man, because to learn ancient Greek, you had to have been at a university or a school of higher learning for sure.
Yeah, you had to be somewhere to learn it for sure.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to pull up your, let's see, your website here. Did you want to talk a little bit about this for the folks listening?
Yeah, it's kind of basic, but I give the introduction of my book. And I think it's not very long, and I think it really sums up what this controversy is all about and why it's important. And you can purchase the book through me, or you can go on Amazon. That's the easiest. And it would be great if you could suggest the book for your local library, because it's a research book. I have over 600 footnotes and lots of information. Like I said, if I had this book, I would have been a lot more informed much earlier. And I wrote the book because of a well-known Shakespeare professor who denigrated the idea that Shakespeare was somebody else on national television, calling people who question it, calling them, basically crazy, in essence, what he meant. And I thought, I'm not crazy. I've been studying this for many years. I want to understand what's behind his point of view. I want to know what makes him so confident in the Stratford man. And
right.
That started my journey,
So, Mark, did you have anything else that you want to ask about the Queen or anything like that? We've got about a few minutes left before we start giving shout outs.
I think, Catherine, you made some great points. I think one line, just put it down. Put it down that there is the line you're looking for, and though thou hast small Latin and less Greek,
Thank
from
you, Mark.
thence to honor thee, I would not seek for names. That's where Dr. Showerman changed it to from less to greater Greek. But your friends and colleagues at the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship, really do present very convincing information. That
Yes.
we have been dealing with the wrong person for over 400 years.
Yes. We publish the Oxfordian, which you could see in one of the images you've got up. I did the cover story of the latest issue, and previous issues of the Oxfordian are free. You can go online to the ShakespeareOxfordFellowship.org website, and that's the latest issue. And we also have yearly conferences, annual conferences, which are open to the public. You do have to pay, a conference fee, but you can do it by the day. You don't have to do the entire conference. So I really urge people who really love Shakespeare and care about him, care that the real author gets the right credit.
Because Katherine, I was going to say a lot of people aren't even aware of this.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of people listening here today, this may be the first time they've ever heard of this, and now they can go and kind of search it. Do their own research, kind of the same way that you did. Because when you found out about it, you said, "Well, wait, what?" And then you had to go do your research, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's the beauty of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And if people do want to delve into this topic more, if they aren't satiated enough by reading Shakespeare Suppressed, they can see the movie Anonymous. And Katherine, you have a praise from one of the actors from that movie?
Yes, Derek Jacobi, Sir Derek Jacobi. He's a very famous English actor. And he read the book and he wrote me a nice letter. So I have the approbation of a great Shakespeare actor.
Nice. So do you all want to start giving some shout outs? Katherine, where people can find your work and your book? I know you do have a YouTube page where people can watch some of your presentation. And you also have your website where you can get the book. And I think it's on Amazon.
That's about it. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not on a lot. But if anyone wants to email me, if you go to my website, you can contact me. And if you want to ask a question, I'd be happy to answer.
Yes, and on the bottom of the screen there, you can see her ShakespeareSuppressed.com. You can go to the website there. And Mark, do you want to give some shout outs on where people can find your work?
You can get Lakes and Lizards on Amazon. I do a show pretty frequently with on Barbara DeLong's network. Brian Bowden lets me hang out with him on Wednesday nights. So I'm just kind of busy with helping out with podcasts. I really enjoy it and appreciate this opportunity this evening to participate in this enlightening discussion.
And thanks so much again for coming on, Mark, to co-host, because you're very knowledgeable. And you introduced yourself, but you didn't mention that your literature background.
The affliction. I after doing stuff like Shakespeare was not the real author. What are my chances that I'm ever going to have a full-time teaching job? It's probably diminishes. Then you throw in UFOs in the Bible. So I'm not really employable, but podcasts keep me busy.
Yes, I want
I
to thank
enjoy
you
it.
both again for being on the show today. Really appreciate having you both on. It's a great topic. I want everybody to go out there and look at Catherine's work, and you'll be surprised at a lot of the information that's out there that a lot of people don't know about who was Shakespeare. So I'm going to leave y'all with some Bog Team music. Let's see, we've got some 80s, we got rap, we got dance, we got folk music. Do you have any special genre that you like? We got country, we got techno. How about
No,
a bit of folk music?
Yeah, that sounds good.
There we go.
In the shadows where the spirits weep.
And don't trip up in any Ides out there. And thanks again so much for being on the show, y'all.
Thank you, Jen.
Take care.
Thank you.
In the land of the living, where hope is sown.